What was your dream? What is your vision for this organization like Tata Motors, let's say 15, 30 years down the road?
I just had a dream that I wanted to be one of the soldiers, if you will, building the new India. And I got my vision from Sumant Moolgaokar.
Paradox in India, inequality is one of the highest in the world. So what is a paradox? What do you think?
The main problem in Indian economy is that incomes of people are not growing fast enough. They are declining compared to inflation.
They also need the government support to make things happen. Once they know what they need, probably need some support somewhere from the system to make it work.
Empower the people with what they need. And they know what they need. I don't know what they need. He got Mr. Modi and he's grown up not through, as he says, Khan Market and Harvard and stuff. He grew up as a simple person. Dr. Manmohan Singh. So he smiled. He said, Arun, I know you very well. I've got your book here. He used to say to us gentlemen, because we had to design a truck and build machines to build a truck. All of us were always told, gentlemen, you're not building a truck. You're building an industry.
Namaste. Welcome to Contribute Towards Blissful Bharat. Is episodes we are gathering from people who have made such contribution in the past, how we learn from it and create a new future for us. Today's episode is with Mr. Arun Maira, who is a former member of the Planning Commission, Executive Director of Tata Motors, and also been a chairman of BCG. He is here to share his experiences and contribute to creation of Viksit Bharat, Blissful Bharat. Namaste, Arun.
Namaste, Janak.
It's indeed a privilege to have you here today to share your thoughts and experiences with a much wider audience we hope to reach. And the starting of this thing was, I've been asked many times to record the history of quality movement in India. So I couldn't write a book, so I thought it's easier for me to go through this podcast. If I write a book, I will write. This way, many people can contribute to what has happened in their own voice, which will be far more, I think, reassuring for people who listen to you. And the idea is once we record this history, what is the learning we take from there so as to decide what should we do now in order to achieve our goals in the future. So that's the context in which we're holding these podcasts. So welcome to this podcast to share your experiences for the benefit of larger masses, and especially your experience both in industry and as a consultant and then in the public service. All of this, a wide perspective that you have, not many people have the opportunity to do so. So from that perspective, it will be very useful to understand the history of quality as you saw it from your beginning of your career till what we have seen so far. And what do you think would be the lessons for the future? That's the intent. We have certain questions, but you can follow the flow that you see as you go along. Will that be okay?
I'm looking forward to this. You and I have talked about quality and the need for quality in industry in India and how we could seed a movement. I forget it, maybe 50 years ago or more. And I don't think we've had too many opportunities since then to have a heart-to-heart conversation again. We had one just a few years ago, but it's very infrequent. And Janak, I think I'm grateful to you for inviting me to talk to you.
Thank you. I recall first time I met you was at Tata Motors in Pune, 1984, I think it was, when you were the executive director. And we had AIEI, which is today CII. They had the executive council meeting at Tata Motors. So the whole council was there. And since I was involved in the quality movement from Nasik, which was close to Pune, so at that time I was invited to lead this, and that's what we did. And it was a great opportunity for me to meet with you and see how passionate you were for quality even at that point of time. Please go ahead and share your experience as you see fit.
I was in Pune in 1984, as you said. At that time, I was like the resident director and responsible for the whole organization. But how did I get to first Tatas and then to Telco and then to this?
You would like to talk about your birth and some initial part of the early part of your life.
That's what I.
That will be useful.
That's it.
Right.
We're leading backwards into that. I was a refugee. My parents were refugees from Pakistan, and he had to abandon my father. He was quite young, 28 or 29, and already built a very successful entrepreneurial manufacturing enterprise in Lahore. Was doing extremely well at that young age. Large factory, huge house with 2 cars, a Tonga to take my wife into the bazaars of Lahore, fruit trees all over, and then came suddenly the partition. And there was, if you do recollect, a question till the very end whether Lahore would be in India and Gurdaspur would be in Pakistan. Pathankot, Gurdaspur. And until a week before, it wasn't announced which side Lahore would be. And then that's all interesting history. One goes back to why Radcliffe gave Lahore to Pakistan and left Gurdaspur and Pathankot, which is a Muslim majority actually, with India. It's linked to now the strategic problems we're having with Pakistan and Kashmir. But that's the background like. But the point is, my father was startled because Sardar Patel had met the entrepreneurs in Lahore, business people, Hindus, and assured them that considering the population, it's most likely that you'll be okay where you are. So my father hadn't moved. It was just the week before when this announcement came before partition that he had to abandon everything. Fortunately, my mother was expecting her third little baby, and so she with me, and I was 4, and my younger brother 2, and expecting the baby, was in Shimla with an uncle on the safer side. So in a good climate, she could deliver her third child. But he was there, and he was able to, with the help of the Indian Air Force, fly out of Pakistan in his shorts and things, and that's how he came across. And so we started life from scratch in this country. And the nice thing I would say about my parents, both of them, they had no problems with any Muslims. In our house in Lahore, there were Muslim friends who lived because their son coming from Peshawar needed to go to a college. So the son lived with us as a older boy in the house and sent, and we're good friends. And on this side too, there was no rancor like with the Muslims as such. There was this whole political division. And my father got a job in the Rampur engineering company. The Nawab of Rampur had a big engineering manufacturing factory, which wasn't being run very well. In any case, with the partition, maybe his general manager was a Muslim and decided to go to Pakistan. So he needed someone to run his factory. So he employed my father. So my background, as you talk about, was at a time when I felt this was my country and we had to build this country. Yes, along with the Muslims who were around, we had to build this country. So I learned a lot of lessons, both from my mother and my father, about from my father about hard times, get things done, make them happen, and be kind at the same time to the people that you work with. And my mother was even more so. So if I could say about values, this value of to get on with it and don't complain about the world. Yes, whatever the world has given you, you start with it. And whatever you do, you will have to work with other human beings. Just be compassionate because they may have even greater difficulties than you have. So that's that. I went to St. Stephen's College in Delhi. Why I went to St. Stephen's College in Delhi was because in school, the Senior Cambridge exam, which is used to be given to all the best schools in India, because we all of them got a paper sent to Cambridge. So I went to a good boarding school on a scholarship in Sanawar and did well. And in the national level exams in senior Cambridge, I came sort of fourth or fifth in the country. Hmm? Now, and people were competing from all the schools of India. I didn't know what I needed to do in life. Country was changing. All that my father and mother knew was that I wanted to serve the country. They would also want me to serve the country. And the only thing that was apparently for service to the country was the civil service. So they were very keen that I someday join the civil service. Of course, you can't join the civil service after school. So they said, what should you do in college? And came around that the most difficult course to be admitted to in India is the physics honors course in St. Stephen's College in Delhi. St. Stephen's was considered those days sort of the acme and the most difficult college to get into. And most of the people who got admitted to St. Stephen's, they did economics and history or whatever, they joined the civil services. So it is no surprise that if you look back at that era, uh, many people who then have been heads of our government and services have been former St. Stephen's, some of them from Doon School, some from Sana, and so. So they said, okay, you go to St. Stephen's College and get admitted into physics honors. Now, what the connection between physics honors and the IS was, I mean, wasn't very clear, but that's how one thing leads to another. So I joined physics honors in St. Stephen's College. Now, this is going to get a bit long, Janak, because the point there was that in those days, business wasn't admired in the country. No young person wanted to work in business if he thought he was worth anything. People did join business. The managing agency houses in Calcutta, in Chennai, or Madras as it was called. Bangalore hardly had any. In Bombay, of course. And they had the British type jobs. You got a very fancy salary for doing what? Tea tasters. Your job was to come to the office in Calcutta, little samples of tea. You tasted them, spat out, then had lunch in the nice room, and then slept a while, and you had membership of 3 clubs, and your salary was about 5 times what you would get in anywhere else, 10 times what you get in the civil service. So like that, when I was in college, these jobs are available, and I had no intention to get to any of these, because I wanted to join the civil service. Unfortunately for me, I did the physics course, and I thought I would then be able to study history in my master's, because in the IS you can't take only science courses. There were 2 science courses, science and maths, and 3 others had to be either history or economics. History, as the people told me, is the easiest subject to study, and most people who got into the IS were either economics or history. And so after you finished your physics, and you're young, and I still had 2 more years after my master's to still be eligible age-wise, you study history on your own. Now I'm sitting Vela, reading history from my friends' textbooks who had already got into the IAS, they left with me. And the principal of the college said to me that, look, invitation has come for you to the college. Please send the best person. One was to Calcutta, to J. Thomas. Very exclusive. They would probably take one person in 10 years or 6 years, right sort of family, and given the job I was describing to you, which included a fancy salary plus a furlough home leave for Indians to go to England every 5 years. And similarly, there was Binny and Company in Chennai, and I'd never been to Chennai, never been to Calcutta. And Tata's also made a request that they had started the Tata Administrative Service. Until that time, they had been taking people from Oxford and Cambridge. Indians would go on to Oxford and Cambridge. But they thought, why not take directly Indians who haven't got the privilege of going there, but are good here? So they asked the principal, St. Stephen's, is there anyone you would recommend who's worthy of working with Tatas? So he told me, he says, look, you can have a Bharat Yatra now. Here are 3 interviews you can go to. One is to Calcutta, the other to Madras, and the third to Tatas. I went to the one in Calcutta and I described what it was like. I mean, at the end of it, when It's nice discussion with these two guys, and they gave me the offer. I finished like after lunch, and they said, "Well, here's your offer." I opened it, and I was shocked at the salary, and it said, "Your every 5 years you'll have 6 months home leave." So I said, "Home leave for where?" They said, it was obvious. I mean, they were all Indians. Home leave, you got to go back to somewhere in England. But then I asked, "What will my work be?" Oh, we forgot to ask you, do you drink tea? Fortunately, I hadn't started drinking tea at that age. I said, no, thank goodness. Well, let's take you and show you. But we already shown you the work. You saw the same guy, he would in white coat, had walked me through the tea tasting thing. He said, that's all you're required to do. Taste and spit and write your notes. Huh? I said, that's the work I'm going to be doing. I mean, I want to do something with my life, not to take in tea and spit it out and then play polo in the afternoon and so. So that was not for me. Tata's was so different, you see. They had a 3 day with 5 or 6 of us. The rest of them were from Cambridge and Oxford, and I was from India. I mean, I to college out of India. And the questions they asked us, what are you interested in? So I said, physics. Yeah, we know that you've done very well there. What else are you interested in? I said, actually, I'm interested in art and painting, which I used to have as a hobby. What else? So I said something else. Then it's a panel of senior directors. Amongst them, someone knew a little bit about that subject. They start engaging you in a conversation about what you liked and what you knew. And like about the art, I'm telling you as an example. So said, okay, when did you get to, the interest in modern art? Hmm? So I said, well, I had a book at home which my mother had left with Picasso's pictures, and so how he got to think of these crazy things. And then it's simple, actually, Picasso's thing. So she left some material and I saw drawing. And have you made any yourself? I said, yes, I have, and they're hanging in our house and so on. Good, good. So they were inquiring about how did I learn to learn something that interested me. Hmm? And similarly, they were asking others about whatever they said. One fellow said that actually he's a man, but Dave, that he liked Kathakali dancing. And that was okay with them. So how do you get to it? How did you learn it? What's proficiency you have? At the end of these interviews, naturally, I mean, they do give a chance as good interviewers to say, have you any questions to ask us? So here were 3 or 4 of us, 5 of us together. So I just asked this question. I said, you never asked us anything about how we'd manage an organization. And they smiled and said, well, none of you have ever done it. It'd be so stupid for us to ask you how to manage an organization. We want to know how well you learn. That if you care about something, would you learn to do it very well? Hmm? And that's what we want. We want the best learners who have a passion to be even better and to make the world even better. With these words, we have a desire to get learners with a passion to make themselves better and to make the world even better. That's what we've been looking for. Now, this really stumped me. Wow. So then they asked me that, so what do you want to do in life? Now, they knew I was going to sit for the IAS exam because the principal had said so. That, I'm sending him, he's my best, but he doesn't want to work with industry because he thinks industry is all about making money for yourself. But anyway, so they said, I knew they knew that, so that would be a stupid answer to give. So I said, maybe spontaneously, I want to serve the country. And Mr. J.J. Bhabha smiled at me and said, Maira, I think you have the impression that people who build industry don't serve the country because we think we also serve the country. And he told the story of how Jamshedji Tata had, in spite of British resistance and obstructions, built the Tata Steel and started the hydroelectric and the textile mills in the middle of India. So Indian cotton could be processed by Indians and produced into cloth and so on. It was very taking on. Yeah, that's another way I could serve the country. But clearly, this business house was not like the other business houses. I just prayed then that they would give me a job. I wanted to serve the country, and I said, these are the sort of people who really are building the country. Unlike maybe an ISCAP who supervises and used to bully my father when he went for his permissions for his new little factory. It's very impressive, and I'd like to be in that power. But these guys were actually doing something. They were building something. So that's how I got to Tata's. And that's led to, when I joined Tata's in the TAS, I was posted in the office of J.R.D. Tata in headquarters, Tata Steel, and right next to him, and young chap, many people around, few people around. And I was just curious because, J.R.D. would have big questions. So his question at the time was that Tata Steel had not been nationalized, though Tata's had recommended that the steel industry should be national because the workers of Tata's, they rebelled and said, if the intention of building industry is to build a good industry and in a way which is kind to the public, you can't beat Tata's. So telling the government, you learn from Tata's, you can have all the rest, and they nationalized Indian Iron and Steel and they built Hindustan Steel, but leave Tata's alone. But licensing system, all the new companies as well as startups were given licenses to how much they could produce. And there was a logic to it. Since we needed new technology in the industry, steel industry, new equipment and a lot of foreign exchange would be required. So when Tata's has got very old equipment, right, and no space to put in the much bigger blast furnaces in thing, it wasn't the logical place to build a new large steel industry. So those sites were the new sites in Rourkela, Durgapur, and Bhilai. More land and Russian equipment and foreign exchange given to them. But Tata said, if you're going to just leave us where we are at 1 million tons, hmm, what is the life of the people here? They want to also do. So Tata was allowed to go to 2 million tons. But it's 2 million tons with old equipment as large part of it. Others have got 5 million ton brand new equipment. So in competitiveness within India, Tata would never be able to succeed against those companies because in large scale, low cost for a commodity. So this was the question. So I'm sitting in J.R.D. Tata's office and a curious sort of guy, and I'm reading steel journals which come to his office and just looking for what's happening in the rest of the world. And I realized that there's a big demand for high strength, low alloy steels in small quantities. Because these are the special steels that you put into bearings and you put into things, not the big sheet steels and the beams. And to produce those steels, you need a combination of two things, small equipment and skilled people. So I said, this is natural. Tata's is now the so called handicap that we have is actually our asset. We have small equipment and we were the most seasoned people. So if they have an aspiration that we will show the world that Tata's can produce, India can produce those higher quality things, which otherwise they think India will produce the basic steels and keep importing the higher ones. J.R.D. Tata loved this idea. He said, this is what we needed is a spark to tell us strategically is the right thing to do, or hum karke dikhayenge. So he liked it. Meanwhile, he gave Sumant Moolgaokar charge of Tata Steel because he says these Tata Steel chaps are still talking like old Tata Steel chaps and complaining that why don't you get us a larger license from government. He said reality is the reality. Why don't you get on within the constraints that you have? I'm going to get Sumant Moolgaokar, who was building up Telco, Tata Motors later. Great, again, entrepreneur and builder, you see. Given nothing, I will build it. He said he's also now going to be the vice chairman of this company. So J.R.D. was chairman of both the large companies, and Sumant Moolgaokar was vice chairman of both. Now I'm sitting in the office of J.R.D. Tata. Sumant Moolgaokar has an office with Tata Motors 2 floors below. And since now, he has been asked to look after both Tata Steel as well as that. He tells J.R.D. Tata, who was going to appoint me his executive assistant, he says, I'm making Maira my executive assistant where he can do some real work and build some real things, unlike you, Jay, who are just presiding over things. They were good friends. And this is said in my presence. And Jay, of course, with a good humor said, well, Maira, I would have loved to have you, but I think Sumant is right. You better go rub your nose on the shop floors and learn. He's a great teacher and a great master. So I ended up with Telco when he started getting this, when we got the land for building the factory in Pune, so that we could have a second factory for telco outside Jamshedpur, the question was, where are the people going to come from? All the equipment can be imported and so on. Where are the people going to come? So that's why he turned to me. He said, we need learners. We need young people who have the passion to build something. All my professional HR people said, salary itni deni padegi. In India, there aren't any experienced people anyway. Very hard. He said, but karna to hai. We have to do it. You seem to know what that spirit is. You go around this country to IITs or wherever and find the very best Indians who want to build India. I was transferred then to Pune, that these young Indians are joining. All of them never done something before, neither I. Build India, build an industry.
Wow, that is phenomenal. I didn't know anything about this, the way you described it. Phenomenal. So in Tata Motors, then when you started, that was 1965? Or?
We started in 1973.
Okay.
Well, yes, you're right. We got the permission and the land in 1969. But by the time there's something on the ground and I went, it was 73.
Okay, Arun, after listening to your fascinating story from Lahore to Delhi to Mumbai and then Pune, it'd be interesting to know when you, such a young age, you got an opportunity to set up a new organization from scratch. What was your dream? What was your vision for this organization like Tata Motors, let's say 15, 30 years down the road? Where would it be? And how did you go about creating it?
To begin with, Janak, I just had a dream that I wanted to be one of the soldiers, if you will, building the new India. And I got my vision from Sumant Moolgaokar, much older man who already had proven success in building industry in India, like factory in Jamshedpur, which was built to build trucks and buses in collaboration with Mercedes-Benz. Those were the days of license Raj, as we said. And by good economic logic, it was felt that there are some industries India needs, like steel we mentioned already, and maybe trucks and buses because people move. काम आम आदमी को तो buses चाहिए and we need trucks to move goods around. So for industrialization and progress of the country, these are fundamental capital goods required. So who was going to produce these? We wanted them to be produced in India. Why? Because then more jobs will be created in India. We wouldn't be importing trucks and buses from countries who produce them very well and creating jobs for them. But of course, we didn't know how to produce a truck and a bus. We'd never done it before. So the policy was that the government would never have only one person, no monopolies. They would say, if this is a segment like trucks and buses, there will be 4 people, 5 people, depending on that. There'll be sufficient internal competition. And considering how large we imagine the market might be in 10 years, each of you will give 1/4, in this case, the commercial vehicles, 4 companies, 1/4 of the capacity is allowed to you. To build that 1/4 capacity, the amount of equipment required, which you make a plan, and it should be a sensible plan, not buying gold-plated things. That's why they had a good DGTD, very good technical people, Indians, educated abroad, employed here, MIT Vagara say, and who would check to say that you were buying sensible things. And if that turned out that you needed, say, $100 million of foreign exchange, having checked, that is granted to you. So along with the license, you got an import license, industrial license, you got an import license. And the import license mentioned the categories of things which you should import, not, get it for one thing and start importing some personal things and sell them in the country. It's sensible. It's what planning is. So we were given one of the licenses for commercial vehicles with Daimler-Benz. And foreign companies were told that you can participate in the growth of India's industry if you help to build something, teach our people to build something. So Daimler-Benz, after the war, it was a very shattered economy, Germany. The British and Americans didn't want them to go too far. But now they had to help build them also. So they did allow Germany to participate in bidding for projects in India. And so Daimler-Benz bid to be the partner of Tata's in the commercial vehicle venture. By the way, Hinduja's got Leyland, British Leyland. We had the Premier Automobiles, which got Ford, Chrysler, and we had Hindustan Motors, which got General Motors. So there were 4 industrial licenses to 4 eminent Indian industrialists with some record that they knew their country and they could build things. But the technology was coming from, again, world-class organizations. The requirement was that we had to progressively learn. Now, what is the proof of learning? That to begin with, you can import all the complicated parts of the truck. The simplest thing, which is put the nuts and bolts together and put it together and test it, assemble, CKD pack assemble, even SKD, semi-knocked-down pack assemble. So all of us in the first year was SKD. The next year became CKD. Then the CKDs became deeper and deeper. And within 15 years, you were required to have more than 90% of the content of your truck produced by suppliers in India. Meaning you also had to induce your suppliers that I can't keep buying from you because otherwise I won't have the foreign exchange to buy from you. You better learn. You find a partner, and maybe Daimler-Benz can help. Whoever is their supplier for wheels can, and so on. So that was the process of industrialization. Now, here was the result that we learned very well in Jamshedpur. Daimler-Benz is a very good teacher, and they had at that time an incentive. They wanted to rebuild Daimler-Benz to establish it as a global company, which it wasn't actually before the war. So here was that if they could be helping build things in India and have a base in India with big markets around, they would get ahead of the rest. And it did become. I mean, while we were building with them in the 1950s and early 60s, Daimler-Benz started to grow up to be the world's largest commercial vehicle manufacturer, exceeded General Motors on commercial vehicles. So the story of mutual benefit. We were being taught very well by these Germans, and we learned very well. So in about 10 years' time, short of 15 years, we got the license in 54. By 64, 65, our vehicles were already more than 90% built in India. In India, they were sold as TMB. It had that TMB star. Abroad, Daimler-Benz was taking our same trucks straight from the factory in Jamshedpur, putting them onto the ports in Calcutta, shipping them to Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Colombo, putting a Daimler-Benz star in the front and selling them there, beating the heck out of the Americans and the British Leyland trucks and Ford trucks and General Motors trucks there. But they were better trucks, right? Then Sumant Moolgaokar said this, that if this is an Indian truck actually, why can't we export it under our name? Two benefits. One is then, we are paying them needlessly sort of a fee, and they're also controlling where to export because they had certain markets they already dominated. We don't want to use another Indian one in there. And so India's ambitions to get onto the world stage as an exporter of complex manufactured goods as trucks and buses is being curbed by this arrangement with them. So we said to Daimler-Benz that though there are another 4 years left to our technical collaboration agreement, we wish to terminate it now. We've learned enough. They said there's still a few remaining things for you to learn regarding synchronous gearboxes and another type of engine. We said, we'll learn that. And Sumant Moolgaokar had already started to put in Pune, the new factory, which is where I was posted, built an engineering research center before everything. The factory to which I went in Pune, Janak, it had a training school at one end. It had an engineering research center at the other. just land in between on which trees were being planted. No factory building yet. Because as he said, building the skills and knowledge of people is what takes much longer than building a factory.
True.
So the workers also take a time to learn, 4 years professionally to get to highly skilled people. Take people from schools. There was a training school and a training hostel. Plus, I've created this research center, which was what? People, young Indians who had got their PhDs and stuff, to experiment designing in something themselves. It weren't trucks and buses. They were making forklift trucks, they were making whatever they like, just to learn how to do it and do. So these two things. So this was the backdrop, and Sumant Moolgaokar therefore said that, and J.R.D. Benz had been concerned about this, that you're not supposed to do your own R&D because we are supposed to keep giving you new designs. But so there was a conflict of ambitions, and it was agreed that we would terminate the technical collaboration agreement. They were the larger shareholders, by the way. Daimler-Benz then, I don't know the situation today, owned more shares in Tata Motors than Tata's did.
Okay.
Yeah, they were the larger shareholder. There were many public Indian shareholders, but we were not larger than them. So they had a choice also. I mean, they could buy, say, but since we are not gaining anything, we want to sell our shares. They didn't. And when rights issues came, they kept increasing their shares in the company because they were benefiting from the profits and the dividends of the company. It was a very well run, profitable company expanding. But they were not giving any technology. We were competing with them. We sent then Tata made, Tata badged vehicles to the same markets, Kuala Lumpur, Middle East, Africa, Sri Lanka. And so into that story, I also got involved. That we put up then because Malaysia said they want an industrial policy and they want to themselves assemble and build trucks, smaller country though. And so they, following India, said, look, we'll allow 3 or 4 people to do, others can't import and sell. So we put up something with the Bhumiputra there. Bhumiputra was the people who were the Chinese along with Daimler-Benz. They had a big operation importing and so, and they had some assembly operation. There was a company with General Motors, very large, big one, and so, and there was some Swedish Volvo or something. So they said enough. It's a small country, thi hai. The Bhumiputra, meaning the local Bhumiputra, Malaysia's history. It's of course Malays, and so they said, look, what is this? The foreigners are going to keep running, and the Chinese particularly, running this place. We want a Bhumiputra company, owned by Bhumiputras, managed by Bhumiputras, but they need technology. So they approached Tatas. Okay, you seem to know how, when you're the underdog, to build something, will you be our partners? So Malaysia relaxed its licensing rule to allow a 4th company, provided it was a Bhumiputra company.
Okay.
Now, they were running the company, the Bhumiputras there, without any experience of running an industry. Unlike Tata's. I mean, Tata's had been running industry since the 1890s, and with Daimler-Benz joint venture came 78 years later. Tata's knew how to build things, how to commercially sell things, how to manage finance. Those guys were like, brothers of kings. They had no idea. So that venture within 2 years went fut.
Okay.
And then the bankers, the international bankers, came to Tata's, as you're one of the shareholders, and our shares, we hadn't put money, weren't allowed. We had donated equipment made by us as our equity. So now they wanted all the shareholders, the bankers, to put in more money.
Right.
So we said we are not allowed to put more money. Government of India rules, I'm talking of the 1970s. They said, well, too bad then. Bad policies your government has, capital is not free to move, but it's going fat. Your reputation will go. That is, they were playing on our pride, that we were wanting to show that Indians can do it abroad also, help another country abroad in competition with the world's best. Nani Palkiwala, who was a deputy chairman, great lawyer, understood finance and law, he made a case, and it was classic, that we're not going to break any rules, but we get what you're saying, that what the company needs now, really needs now, we will provide. And in our view, what the company really needs now is good management. And it's too sad maybe that the Bhumiputras that you have haven't yet learned it. So if you can relax the rule and allow an Indian CEO, and we don't want too many people, just one Indian CEO, because for the technical part, the technical arrangement which we had, there was a service manager, a factory manager, and a quality manager. I mean, those 3, 4 people were there, but that's not really a company in competition. Uh, Allow us to have the CEO to be a non-Bhumiputra.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the government was actually very, very embarrassed about his Bhumiputra policy that everyone was joking in the foreigners saying they think, they think. So they did change their law and constitution to, in our case, in Tata's case with that venture, that for 3 years they will allow an Indian CEO. And Sumant Moolgaokar turns to me in India. I'm building telco in Pune and we are doing well, like I said, building and exporting our trucks. He says, just like that, out of the blue one day, when I'm talking to him along with other executives about I need a approval for a new wage agreement, which is a very innovative wage agreement in Pune. But meanwhile, this crisis had come. The foreign bankers were asking for an answer within a week. Nani Palkiwala along with the telco team. So he said, okay, we are getting permission to send one person. It's a marketing problem. So our sales director, the next chap who's going to be said, you should go, be a great experience for you. No, no, sir, the market in India is so big, we need, because I mean, that's a small country. Then he said to the finance guy, it's a finance problem. Either you go yourself and you've been making the case or send the next guy. No, 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 but more important here. So like that, everyone's saying no, and Sumal Bangalore is like sitting like this, smiling away at all the rest of it. And he turns and says, gentlemen, it's very clear. None of you have the guts to do it. Thank you very much. He told me, just stay, because I had come to say, when this meeting is over, can I show you my agreement?
Okay.
He sent them all away, and he said, Maira, you are going to Malaysia. I said, me? Where is Malaysia? No, no, don't worry. It's a, apparently it's a good place, and I know you will do the best. None of these people know how to actually market anything in competition. They are so used to being a large enterprise where banks run after them and stuff. They just don't know that. You are, my friend, going to learn that, and I'm 30 years old or something. Learn that at 31. And I said, so I came for this agreement. So he said, fine, explain the agreement to me. And that agreement is very linked to what we're going to talk about quality. But I'll come to that story later because it's linked to the quality story. We link it to this little book also that Moolgaokar had given me. So I went off to Malaysia and we succeeded. And how did we succeed? We were once again there. We weren't allowed to get any more foreign equipment or anything because, again, same story that we don't have it. You have to buy your wits of how you market, how you manage your service, how you motivate your staff. That's the source of competitive advantage. Very much like what Japanese had to do after the war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were constrained, no resources. The only assets they had was their people.
Right.
So here in Malaysia also said, well, who are the people? I'm an Indian. There were the 3 or 4 in some positions. Our sales manager had to be a local guy, so he knew the market. He was a Chinese guy. Our finance guy, again, was a local guy, happened to be an Indian, well, way back Indian origin, but a local Malaysian. And the venture is collapsing. All of their reputations are going down. The poor sales manager, who was a great success with Daimler-Benz, it opted to start with a new one because he thought it was a challenge. Now he was being blamed. You don't know a damn thing about marketing. You thought you're a big chap. Everyone had to save their reputation.
Right.
So our thing was that India has been, my 3 colleagues from India and myself, okay, everyone thinks that Indians don't know anything. They get postings abroad so they can earn foreign currency, which, yeah, we used to earn then when India got nothing. इसीलिए आते हैं छुट्टी मनाने के लिए पैसा वापस लेके जाने के लिए आते हैं. This was our reputation as India. That's one. The other 2 had their personal reputations also. So I just made this clear. I started by saying, I've come here to do something which people believe India can't do. And we bloody well are going to show them that we can. So I was given a salary of the CEO. The previous CEO of Bhumiputra had his same salary. He had a big Mercedes car. I came to the first board meeting. Yes, yes, salary is confirmed. The car is there. We just have it, replace it with a better model and all the rest of it. And third thing on that, we are appointing now a new deputy chairman, again a Bhumiputra retired general, and because we need more supervision. And we proposal is to get the company to become a corporate member of the golf club, the Royal Selangor Golf Club.
Okay.
The advantage of it is that there'll be two persons who are allowed to play golf for free. One will be this general, and one will be me.
Okay.
Huh? So, it's a world privilege, that Royal Selangor Golf Club, and I never played golf anyway. So I said, but I don't want to play golf. Then I got a lecture. Unless you play golf, you can't make deals. All the big deals are made. And so I gently said, I'm not sure that the people who buy our trucks and buses ever play golf, because I knew that they're Chinese businessmen, very hardworking guys.
Yeah.
They work all day and drink brandy at night, and they don't have time to play golf. So I'll consider it, but right now this resolution is not being passed. I then get out to go to the room. The chief executive of the holding company, the Sultan's holding company, comes to me and said, Myra, you know how you are here. You are here at the because this person has arranged a special visa for you to be able to come. You know that, and if you don't, please him, your visa can be cancelled in 24 hours notice. He said this. I picked up my briefcase, which is next to me, and started to walk out. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. Why? I said, well, I'm not here to be chucked out when you feel like. I thought you wanted me here. I'm going to stay till I'm wanted here and till my company says come back. I don't work for you. I work for my company. He said, you're quite a guy. He said, you're quite a guy. I said, yeah, you're going to see this. And so it happened. We never joined that golf club. And when all the bills came from the Tunku for his parties at night, which he would give to all his other joint ventures, not a single one was passed by me. And I would be invited, of course, as a very proudly as one of his guests, given the champagne. He'd show off, Tata is our Indian partner, my company, and so. So, the pride in yourself, the confidence that I don't know how to do it, but I'll find an innovative way to do it. And this is what that team, we did remarkable things in terms of marketing strategy, which have then been written about in the industry as, the most innovative marketing strategies, service strategies. Nothing had to be done about producing a truck. Everyone knows how to do that.
So thanks for sharing that. So going forward from there, where you think
we come, therefore, you said a vision for telco. Moolgaokar's thing was, he called it, the title of my book, The Learning Factory. He used to say to us gentlemen, because we had to design a truck and build machines to build a truck, all of us were always told, gentlemen, you're not building a truck, you're building an industry. Yes, we're building an industry, which means that we also will have to put in a factory to make machine tools, special purpose machine tools, which truck manufacturers, car manufacturers don't have to do, because India didn't have those facilities. We'll also have to put in a factory to produce precision dies and tools, which again, no original manufacturer does. I mean, you buy it from specialist people. But since it wasn't available in India, we will have to learn to do those things also and do them. We are going to be a learning factory. We are building an industry, and to build an industry, we're going to be a learning factory. And he said, who learns? Do you think the machines learn? You are learning, Myra. That's what you were brought here for. Keep learning. And I said, you made me a boss at 30 of this. People are 55 who built things in Jamshedpur and much senior to me and so on. And you're making me their boss. I mean, what can I tell them? He said, you have to tell them nothing. You have to learn from them. And keep this in mind. You will learn from everybody. Every day, I want you to go in the morning and walk for 2 hours along the shop floor.
Mm-hmm.
You will see maybe a gardener outside your office. Ask the gardener what the gardener is doing. Ask the gardener what the gardener is learning. You will walk inside the factory, you will see him work in front of a machine. Ask the worker who he is, where he's come from. Ask him whether he enjoys what he's doing. Ask him what he's learning. Understand his questions because you will learn. So he taught me that.
Okay.
So every day after he'd come to the office late in Bombay. We had a hotline. I'd come 8 o'clock in the factory, do my 2 hours. By the time I came back, he'd be on the hotline. Chairman wants to speak to you. And his question would be, so what did you learn today?
Okay.
Wow. He wanted then, if ever we were allowed to make cars, we would be there to make the cars. The government of India, as you know, licensing, truck manufacturers, car manufacturers, the car licenses were monopoly of Hindustan Motors, Birlas, and Premier Fiat.
Right.
And government, so Sanjay Gandhi, he had this thing to build his little car. So he broke into the government and Sanjay Gandhi's project. So there were three companies that were licensed to produce cars: a government company with Suzuki, and these two.
Mm-hmm.
But Rajiv Gandhi came in and he felt that we maybe need to broaden and let truck manufacturers make cars and car manufacturers make trucks. So then came our opportunity that Telco could also make a car.
Okay.
And that took me to Japan and to Honda and to quality and lots of things.
Okay, Arun, now we can take off from here in the context of quality for which we have decided to take this podcast. Since working with Tata Motors, you obviously had a view as to where you think Tata Motors would be. Companies like Hyundai probably started making cars or vehicles at the same time as Tata Motors did. And it's not only Tata Motors, Indian economy as a whole, manufacturing sector. Over the last 40, 50 years, we don't seem to have reached where products are acceptable in the world. In India, it has improved, especially in the automotive sector, who took quality a little seriously towards late 80s, early 90s, have improved, but still nowhere near the international standards. So, in your perspective, what do you think have contributed to this situation that we're still not able to make into world-class products? And even we tried many things, we've improved, but still can't get where we want to be. And that correlates directly to your question of inequality, which you so beautifully write in your books. If the paradox in India, inequality is one of the highest in the world. Indian business organizations have higher profit to earning ratios in the world, second highest to USA. But we have one of the poorest per capita income in the world, in spite of a $4 trillion economy. So what is the paradox? What do you think is where we went wrong and what do we need to do to get back on track?
Mm-hmm. The Indian economy has got the main problem, the Indian economy, which you said, is that incomes of people are not growing fast enough. Incomes of people who have to work to earn money are not growing fast. In fact, they are declining compared to inflation. The wealth of people who are using their money to invest in other wealth instruments are increasing. So what is work, I come to? Yeah. If work is something that a human being does with his mind and his body, what is the value we ascribe to that? Value. We've got to the stage where you say the valuation of a company. The valuation of a company is the share prices of the company. What is the real value of the company? What are the assets of the company? Now, if you say the assets of the company are the financial instruments that the company owns, Yes, and then you therefore value those and see when you can buy and sell them, merge, and so on. Yeah, you're smart at managing money and can make more money. Hmm? But look at the people who don't have any wealth to invest to begin with. They have to first earn enough to feed themselves, and that is enough. Then some they can save, and the savings that they have, if they don't get frittered away on emergency exigencies, medical probleming, then they're able to accumulate a little more wealth, which they can then use for their own venture, whatever they want it to be. Buy my own machine so I can then start doing more skilled work and produce cloth which is better, etc. So our people are deficient of not human capital, they're deficient of wealth capital. So what's the model of an economy in which people who don't have wealth capital are going to, through their work, be able to accumulate enough wealth capital to feel a little more secure about their own lives? Okay, now Gandhiji had the solution. He said that who owns the enterprise always determines two things. One is what the people in the enterprise should do so that it works efficiently. He or she assigns them tasks and then makes sure they're supervised, that they do those tasks and paid accordingly. As well as that it should be fair, meaning if someone is not pulling his weight enough, you fire him, because it's not fair to the enterprise to keep people who got some problem for temporary and so. The second is, after this wealth has been produced by the work of all these people, who decides what to do with the wealth? It's the owner of the wealth, means the investor. In the capitalist model, the owners of the wealth are the investors, the private investors. In the socialist model, the government is the owner of the wealth. In both models, the workers are cogs in machines. There's no difference in the way a large automobile factory is organized in the United States or in the Soviet Union, or was in the Soviet Union. I mean, the same people, Taylor went and advised them on time motion studies on how to make that factory a more efficient machine, as well as Henry Ford actually. He went to the Soviet Union. They were open to technology and he didn't mind to tell them how to organize a large mass production system. So both the Soviet system and the American system, the workers were disempowered people. The theory in the socialist one is the wealth belongs to everybody, but the decision on what I should do today, as well as what may be done with the surplus, is not in my hands. Yeah? So Gandhiji's idea, I'm saying not just Gandhiji, this has been a good idea, is unless the workers can be owners of the tools and instruments that they use, they just are not in control of their lives. Because if a fellow is a very skilled worker, uses some skilled machine, you fire him, half of him is left in the factory. He can no any longer produce that quality stuff. He has to be employed by someone else who has a machine. And he's again just an employee being paid for wage. And this was Marx's thesis, that this model of organization, and I'm saying we of course then said he was against capitalism, because he was defining capitalism as private people owning. But he was as against, as I said, the state owning, because he says the human being gets alienated from their own hands. An old carpenter would carry in his box his skilled tools, and would go and sit and put his enterprise where he wanted and by his own wits produce better stuff, a better carpenter or a better cobbler. You'd go to them and this is good. But once he is now hired as a skilled carpenter or a skilled cobbler in a factory, he just has no option except to get to another employer. So you get this class thing that there are workers who are employed and then there are people who employ them. And the value, financial value, goes to whoever is employing them, whether it's the state or it's a private person. Now, I say the distinction between a private capitalist enterprise and a government owned so called socialist enterprise is that at least in the socialist owned enterprise is declared that the purpose of it is to improve the lives of people. In the case of the capitalist enterprise, it's written there. Your purpose is you've been given limited liability so that you can ensure that the risks that you take won't damage the financial interests of the investors. So it's a flaw in the design of the institution. I'm calling today a flaw. It's considered a genius idea, and that's why, yes, companies have become very rich, destroying the environment, making people into slaves or underpaying them. Yeah, they become very rich, shareholders have. And this model that socialism is bad and capitalism is good became the model in 1991 all over the world, because that was the time when the Soviet Union finally gave up and collapsed, and the Washington Consensus began to rule. And the Washington Consensus is it all has to be private. Government is evil, as Reagan said. Government is not the solution, it's the problem. And today, the extreme, you got DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. We also, our people, I'm saying since 2014, started by minimum government, maximum governments. I think this is absurd. For governance, which means being fair and kind to the people who have the least, you need government. If you're going to leave it to the private sector to take care of them, by definition they won't. And this so-called invisible hand always works in the interest of those who behind the scenes control that hand. So we do need not the socialist planning model, but a philosophy that society is primary, economy is there to serve society, and we don't distort society's shape to make the economy more efficient, which leads to the matter about families and women. A woman is I tell you this, Indian women, and I've observed, especially the poorer ones who have very little time and resources, they bring up 2 or 3 children. They make sure the husband is fed. He has to go a long distance early in the morning to come back from work. He is tired. And yet, they'll be the first to wake up and the last to sleep, making sure everybody in the family is done. And in between, they will go out and do some chutta work and part-time work. They will look after, if they're on a farm, all the goats and cows and stuff, and do all of that. They're very productive people. But we say, they're not adding to the GDP because no one's paying them money for it. Mm-hmm. But should they have to be paid money for doing good work? Or should they be put on the front lines into a Sukhoi or something and to shoot someone else? And why are we trying to make society divided into fighting machines? We need to be families working together. So I do think we've come to the point to face some fundamental questions. Otherwise, not just India, but the whole world is in a mess. We need a new idea of an economy. And my book here, which has just come out this week, is about reimagining India's economy, the road to more equitable society. Rethink, it's a society, and there needs to be equity and fairness in a society. That's what we should measure, not the size of the economy.
So how some of the countries like South Korea, Japan, Taiwan have been able to make a transformation and for the benefit of the society in their country in terms of at least the monetary wealth?
All not the same, because there's Japan you mentioned, you said South Korea, Taiwan, you said China. I'm going to introduce another country, Vietnam.
Right, now Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. So here's some good, interesting statistics. Yeah, we do know that Japan after the war was the miracle that changed the world, which linked to a quality story. And Japan changed the world, meaning became so dominant in all industries, manufacturing, chemicals, shipbuilding, electronics. They had no raw materials for anything.
Right.
They only had people. So they built their new skills. and their competitive skills on the basis that they had the best learning organizations. Japan's philosophy of quality was an organization is a learning organization. And we will enable workers doing whatever they do to be given the time and the tools to figure out for themselves why there's oil spilling out of their machine, dirtying their clothes, why, when the machine breaks down, they have to run around and be fired for this. You know, making their own work easier, cleaner. And if all this adds up, obviously there's less waste in the factory, there's less noise in the factory, there's less breakdown in the factory. Now, this amazed American people particularly because their belief is that, you know, a system is like a mechanical system, there's data, and, you know, you got to, like an industrial engineer, map the whole system, then have some equations to say this would cause that, and then you put in place instruments to take its signals, and then you can automate it also and put it in. The Japanese factories, when I went to Japan in the early 1980s to find a partner for us in the automotive industry, and before that to study quality with Ichikawa in Japan, I did find that there were no computers in the factories. I did find, this I'm talking of the 1980s, that their factories didn't seem larger, they didn't seem more modern in terms of equipment, but definitely they were quiet. They seemed less waste around, much cleaner. And so, means no waste of time, no waste of material. How did that come about? Because in every operation, everybody was eliminating waste of time and waste of material. And they were doing that because they said the previous operation may be doing something which is making it hard for me to do something. So I need to give feedback. But I, in turn, must be doing something bad for the next operation. So you make a system where people are informing and learning together as a system. This is what I understood. It's a learning factory where each person is learning, but learning that I must help the other so that others can help me also. A cooperative system. They're not in competition with each other. Whereas in American design of a factory, each person is saying, who's the best and most productive worker, given more, and he is most productive by hogging all the best resources so he can do the easiest work. And so philosophy is very different, that a human being must be the asset, the only asset is in an operation, in a business operation that appreciates its own value is a human being. If a human being is curious and wants to learn and is provided an environment to learn, the human being becomes more valuable to the organization. Whereas the other system to say, well, I've designed my factory very efficiently, I need these 6 types of skills of workers there, and when the technology changes, I don't need these 6, throw them out, let the system train new people and bring them in, and then they don't fit with each other in the system, and we say soft skills nahi hai. Our whole design program in India for skill development has been based on this false idea of what is industry. Industrialization is a process of learning. Individuals learn, organizations learn, the policymakers learn together. In Korea, same thing. Japan, same thing. China, the same thing. Each country's context is different. So you can't say the Japanese policies could be copied verbatim as is in Korea. No, they weren't. Neither China could copy the other two, or Vietnam. The principles were the same, that any society is a learning society. And competitive advantages will change depending on who learns faster than the others. So this whole previous theory of trade, that every country should concentrate on what it has the most of, and trade with others what they have more of, which is a static theory of development. If England has the better mills to produce textiles, which they got by learning how to do that, and Portugal seems to have better climate to produce port wine, then tell the Portuguese, don't worry about producing textiles, just keep sending us your wine and we'll give you the textiles. हमारे देश को तो ऐसे बर्बाद कर दिया, this industrial philosophy. That we've got the better technology and things in England, Why do you want to keep on making cloth? Yeah, you send the cotton to us, we'll give you mass produced, cheaper cloth for your masses. And as Gandhiji pointed out, but unless the people make something themselves, where are they going to earn? So, this whole thing, a citizen is not a consumer. A citizen is a human being with many needs. Consumption is one, but the human being needs work to be able to consume with dignity, and the human being needs respect and dignity. And inside the factories, like I was describing to you, Soviet Union, others, that's one thing. Workers are not respected because they are just to be do or die. जो भी क्या है करो और पूछो नहीं कि हाँ तुम इतने स्मार्ट नहीं हो. हम समझते हैं कि how this whole system runs. But the Japanese was no. The worker probably understands his situation better than any industrial engineer would.
Why in India we couldn't do that?
It comes to this philosophy, Janak, I'm saying so. Unfortunately, we were in that movement and you were one of the founders of it. We came from Japan and realized that in India, the resource that we have is the largest number of young people. They are extremely talented and bright. I say a person who has not been to school or college in India has even more talent because they learn how to be resilient. When they go to school or college, they're told the one way to do something. They're not flexible or entrepreneurial at all. Whereas a person who hasn't got anything, you can see. Yeah. What is that great movie about Slumdog Millionaire? Hmm?
Yeah.
There is. You have to be so. Okay? And so we have human beings. I mean, I'm saying a human being inherently is the most innovative entrepreneurial thing. No machine at the moment can substitute this innate ability of a human being. We have the most of the human beings in the world and young people who want to do something with themselves. They want to be proud of themselves. They want to be respected. And they need to earn. So whatever it they can do should be respected. It's valuable work. But if you keep saying, no, no, the fellow who's investing in the stock market, and look how much he made last night and so on, itna smart hai. Our whole culture's changed towards people want to play gambling games and prove that they're very smart. Who wants to? I also wouldn't today want to be a worker and be put onto a motorcycle to deliver stuff. They're very hard-working people. They take more risks on Blinkits and Ubers and so on. But what respect do we give them? And what do we pay them? What social security do we give them? So it's the philosophy that society owes it to its most vulnerable people to create conditions where they have it, but they should have a fair chance. So this is Gandhiji's dictum to all policymakers, including business people, that please, when you're making any policy, any big decision, Anantodaya, think of the poorest person in your sight and how would your decision, find the logic, how would your decision improve the life of that person? Don't think of how first you will grow your wealth so that you will have more philanthropy money to give later. That comes with, poor chaps. See, I have become so smart and wealthy. Now I will look after you. Where's the dignity in that?
See, in India, this shift took place in 1991-92. Before that, we didn't have the Western model, but you said the factories were the same, organization was the same, whether West or East didn't matter. And we had a great opportunity to make a transition. So what do you think happened between actually, what I see in the curve post-liberalization, the the real income of people actually have gone down in
Yes.
our so-called liberalized society. We seem to have regressed in certain ways in terms of income levels of the below the 50% of people.
Janak, you and I, you're in your 80s and so am I. It's the young people who, it's going to be up to them. But the young people have been taught ideas after 1990s, which you and I think are foreign ideas. Yeah, we grew up in circumstances in our own country, being grounded in a country which was poor, but knowing that there were people around us, like us, who wanted to make a difference, not just to themselves, But I'm saying the Gandhian socialist sort of idea. I want to improve the lives of other poor people also. Hmm? This was the values. After that time, as I say, it's all becomes STEM, science, technology, and I add economics and management. You say engineering and mathematics. Everyone wants to go and do management. And what is management? You're taught how to help a company make more money. That's what they're taught in business schools. What is economics nowadays? How to grow the GDP. Where are people listening to learn from other people, learning to listen to people who they look down upon? Okay, because he's not been to college yet, he can't tell me anything useful. I'm going to teach this person. We're going to give up these ideas. In fact, we better stop and say, let me listen to the people who haven't been corrupted yet with this wrong thinking. So now I do know that we have here people listening in who are younger than both of us, and I do want to keep engaging with these people because I do find that they have the aspiration to change the world like you are describing. Not all of them, unfortunately. Some of them want to be unicorns, but very few, fortunately. A majority of them, of course, want to do better in life and to be respected, but they'd like it to be in a way that their own family's life is also improved, plus their own friends and community is better. And maybe they go beyond that to say, let me think more deeply about why is it that some people, either their caste or their religion or their family circumstances, uh, as good as me, but don't seem to have a chance. So there are many young people in this country. I'm saying so. I engage with them in colleges and universities and the policy groups they formed of their own, and on Zoom because it's easy. I don't travel as much. I'm so delighted with young people questioning, did the right thing happen after 1991? I say yes, it was necessary because maybe the old one had gone a little too overboard and didn't understand the change in the world and the situation. But after that, we just got to this thing. Anytime now they say we need to have reform. Just look at our business papers. Reform means less regulation. And the whole labor movement is saying, farmers movement is saying, we want reform of the economic system so we can earn some more and have dignity. The word reform has got co-opted by this whole Reagan sort of thing or Elon Musk thing, abandon government, leave the business unregulated.
So you talked about Japan a little earlier. It's one of the most equal societies from according to this World
Still.
Quality Report.
And you know, China and Vietnam, and bringing it in, since the 1990s, before the 1990s, India was per capita income little richer than China.
Yes.
It was 6 times richer than Vietnam. Today, per capita income in China is 6 times higher than India, and in Vietnam also 4 times higher than India. What happened, and this is where people find it hard, that those two countries didn't give up their socialist philosophy. That the purpose of a government is to look after all the people, not just the business people.
Okay, Arun, it's very interesting to hear from you about the family and workers and the housewife and care for the society. Okay. Actually, in 19 late 70s, early 80s, that's what I started talking about as a quality, not product quality per se. I made the same statement when I was presenting at the Deming Prize winning ceremony. I was in a company which manufactured graphite electrodes. And occasionally we used to hear, the customer says the graphite electrode broke and you paid compensation and things like that. We didn't care too much about it. But my thinking was if that electrode broke, it went into a melt in the steel furnace. It spoiled the quality of that melt. So whatever you do to rectify it will never be the same as original. Make a steel product which is defective, maybe a coil, and ultimately somebody converts it into a bicycle or a pump, which is used by a person in a village. Finally, he gets impacted by the errors I make in my company. I started thinking from that perspective, and that came to me also listening to Swami Chinmayanand. And philosophy, he explained to me Gita in a very simple language, logical way of thinking. And that's what I realized. Like you said, the women, and I keep repeating the same thing in many of the lectures I do. They're the first one to wake up in the house, last one to go to sleep. There's all the work they much more than the husband does. And she doesn't get tired. She has no privilege leave, she has no casual leave, she has no weekly off, day in and day out. Husband goes to work, comes back after 9 hours, and he's dog tired. He needs a hot cup of tea or coffee to rejuvenate him, and which she provides. And her work doesn't end at the end of the day. She has to succumb to the needs of the husband in the night, take care of that. I believe, but primary reason is she is not doing it for next increment, not doing it for the. She is doing out of love and affection for the family. When the purpose of work is beyond yourself and the larger grouping, the release of energy from within enhances. That's what we call creative work. And in the context of in philosophy, it's to work in a yagna spirit for benefit of a larger group. The release of energy increases when we work for the whole family, and it further increases when you work for the whole department, the whole company, and the whole nation or the world. So when you work for the world like this, then you're like a godhood. So it's Aham Brahmasmi. But the release of energy is proportionate to the creativity of the work benefits people. So Indian and that's what attracted me to the Japanese way. The philosophy of teaching was something similar to what we believe in Indian philosophy. So it is so closely aligned, but somehow we could never make it work. So you brought a new thought to me with the organization structure, economic structure, which doesn't let this natural thought flow. And you talked about learning organization. Again, I recall I was visiting a company in China, Shanghai Electric, the second largest producers of the compressors for air conditioners and things like that. Virtually in India, they have 60% of market share. Their chairman introduced me to 3 young engineers from India in the R&D center. So he brought them to me and I asked them, what are you doing? And they have been there for 12 months, opening compressors, assembling compressors, learning to do things differently. What will they do? Come back to India? They're being trained for 1 year to become mechanics, engineers, and a manager of a service center here. I don't know of a company in India which will train the most managers, service managers don't even know how to assemble or disassemble it. So how will they learn? How will they service it? So this is a challenge which, again, you have reinforced what I've been thinking. And maybe now if you can share with us the thoughts, how do we move forward from here? And in terms of quality, what is your learning when you went around and you've been a consultant in addition to being in industry? So how do you see a convergence of consultancy and industry, and then in a public service like planning commission, how do we converge together towards a common goal?
Hmm. I was with Tata's for 25 years, and in 1989, some family health issues required that we take care of our daughter in the US. So I had to, go and earn in the US because those days, Tatas would want very much to be able to give me money to look after my daughter and my son there, but they not allowed. So I had to go earn myself. And J.R.D. Tata said to me that, look, these things happen in life circumstances. You're poised to be perhaps the chief of Tata Motors or something, but we can find another Myra because we got a good system. Your daughter needs you; she'll never find another father. This is the stage in life. You've got to go look after your daughter, and to look after her, you have to earn some money so that you can provide for her care and and your wife will be with you and your son too, and look after the family in a strange land. I was 45 years old, been on the board of Tata Motors already for 8 years, and other Tata companies. It was fine. And in a strange land, I'm talking of the 1980s, where India is the dark ages, it's still the sort of socialist and so on. He said that no big company is going to give you a decent job. Um, I think you should consider joining a consulting company. However, um, who knows, the consulting company probably also wants someone who's already very experienced in things that American companies want. But there's this company called Arthur D. Little, who were consultants to the government of India in the science policy. And JRD, is one of the fathers of India's science policy, along with Homi Bhabha and Nehru. And so I know them. I'll just write a note to them that our best young chappie, some circumstances, if you would consider interviewing him, and he might be useful to you. Fortunately, there was on the other side a person who had worked in telco in our research division, a senior MIT PhD, and he was now a senior person in Arthur D. Little. So he knew Tata and knew me also. Oh. So he told the company, please interview him. So I got selected into Arthur D. Little. But the point was this: I have to sell myself into American companies, the big companies. What would they want advice from an Indian guy who's run a factory in India? Well, India kya hai? Nothing. That's the time the quality movement was invading America. I'm talking late 1980s, because the Japanese had shown America that they can beat them in everything by quality management. And as you remember the Plaza Accords, Americans just felt okay, they're manipulating their currency and made them uh, appreciate their currency by twice, and yet the Japanese kept beating the Americans. And so I was invited to run the manufacturing practice, if you will. And you can imagine the crazy idea of Arthur D. Little. You're getting an Indian manufacturing manager to teach Americans how to do manufacturing, but their thesis was that it's to do with quality, which I had learned very well in Japan and been part with you the movement of getting Indians to understand the essence of quality management is people and learning. So I got in there, and Arthur D. Little got a huge project with the Ford Motor Company to improve quality. Since that project was already sold, they included me on it to teach at least our Arthur D. Little team or the essence of quality. So I was there at all our internal and meetings with the client, including the CEO of Ford, and listening to their discourse. Like they had made it like people's quality movement used to be, that there'll be a person in charge of the quality in the company, maybe on the board level because it's so important. He's given a budget, and then there'll be a training program for everybody. The board must be trained in quality, the workers must be trained in quality, this thing called quality, standard programs, 1 week and this and that and the tools and so on. And Ford had engaged Deming himself, or Juran, I forget which of the two, to do this program. And at that time, the National Public Television, National Public Radio, they were interviewing big American companies to find out whether the Americans were learning how to catch up with the Japanese. So Ford, naturally being the largest, along with GM auto company, and had taken an official thing that we are going to qualitize the whole of Ford. This is an interview with Juran on
Deming. It was
Deming, sorry.
National Broadcasting Corporation.
You got
if
it right.
Japan can, why can't we? Was the title of that.
That's right, huh? Thank you. He knows history of quality more than anyone in the world. Deming, I thought it was Deming. Deming. And in this thing, which everybody was told when he's being interviewed, all offices must shut for half an hour. Everybody must switch on a TV. All workers on the floor to get it from the guru's head. And the interviewer asks him, to Deming, that have they got it? And Deming, old man at the time, he had tears in his eyes. He said, no, they think quality is in the numbers. It is in the people. And the quality movement then, and with G, it became into the Six Sigma. In India also, unfortunately, It became all about statistics and statistical analysis and, figuring out which interventions to do. It is true that our simple tools of quality, our 7 tools, are simple methods for people to take evidence and put it into some logic. You don't need to have big data statistical model. In fact, if you have them, you get totally confused and so on. So this was what I then got it, and my team realized that what this guru had said in tears, I have been saying all this time. And then they had visited our telco factories at the time that earlier, because they wanted to sell work to telco, both McKinsey and these people. But this is what they had seen in telco. Everybody seemed to be engaged. There were like little circles, there were little boards on the floor, quiet, extremely clean, and that always impressed them. That how come it's a factory? How come it's as spotlessly clean as a Western hospital? And Moolgaokar had this. He said, you know, you will understand quality if you can create quality which matters to you in your own lives. Everybody likes to live in a clean space. I want to be in a clean space. And so, if you enable people to clean up their own place, the whole factory will be clean. And for the whole factory, when it becomes clean, there's no waste. And this is the thesis of quality. So, this book called I Know It When I See It, John Gosperi's book, Moolgaokar gave to me when I was in Pune. And he said, you're interested in quality. And this is when I'd gone to Japan and there I did meet Ishikawa, and we had a lesson from him too. What does he say? This book is about a pencil factory. Okay, now this is interesting. Adam Smith wrote his book with the example of the pin factory. And the pin factory, he said, if you divide the operations into specific tasks, then each worker will do his task more accurately and efficiently, and the whole factory will be better off. And the measure of the quality of the factory was ultimately the efficiency of the factory. So that's quality, Six Sigma. He says, I know it when I see it. So here is a manager like Moolgaokar himself. It could be him. He says, I go around and I know it when I see it. And the evidence of it is, he would always say, something seems to be out of place. Something seems to be out of place. So that's why he said, if we can make our factories as clean as a German hospital, for which everybody has to participate, A, they will be very proud of where they are and comfortable where they are also. And B, our quality will have improved. So, when I was with Ford and the other places, and I began to point this out, that if you had ever been, like I had been, to a Japanese factory, and some Ford guy he had retired by the time, I said I was quite amused by the questions that he asked the head of Ono in the Toyota place. He said, okay, translation, we went around and we didn't see any computers or anything, and no fancy equipment. But we were shown, privileged, the 30 of us, with the permission of Toyota, the world's best factory, maybe it's Toyota. And so when the question time came, this guy gets up and asks to the director of Toyota, he said, what computers are you using? So the fellow says, he said, no, but how do you manage the information about quality? So he said, we showed it to you and they put up that Kanban card. And the card, as you know, the name of the part and the quantity there. And so, answer given. This fellow still standing speaks in English, big American English, and saying, they are the damn Japanese, they never tell you the real truth, do they? He couldn't get the real truth. It's not about the numbers. It's like to your point about I'm part of a system, and the minimum amount of information that the other needs to send me for me to do a better job for them, I should get it. And I, in turn, should analyze what is the minimum I should ask the someone behind. So you don't need so much data floating around. It's just the right thing. You understand the system. You see? So that took off. Thereafter, I became the guru and writing books in America about the accelerating organization, how people learn and organizations learn, and so on. And changed, the value I could give, but it was equally true when I joined BCG, which was later, that BCG, McKinsey are strategy consulting firms, and they deal with the CEO who wants to see his share prices increase, and they had concepts like total shareholder value, measure everything by how it adds up to total shareholder value. This is not going to improve the lives of people, and it makes your own company very fragile. This is what we are suffering from now. So, come back to, I would say, our business community, business leaders and management schools, they need to change their mind. Dr. Manmohan Singh, I got that in that book there too. He was invited by CII in 2007. Hmm? Remember, 1991, he's the hero. 2004, election won, he's appointed Prime Minister. The world was delighted it was him, Prime Minister, not Sonia Gandhi, because she's a socialist and he's a liberal capitalist. So he's invited by CI, like, thank you very much for giving us the freedom. Big hall in the Taj Palace, and huge hall, 1,000 people, all members of CI. In the front row, he's there. Sunil Muttal, Sesha Sahi, who that time was the president. Mr. Munjal sitting my side, Rahul Bajaj sitting on my other side, both senior industrial people. I grown up with them. When Munjal was older, Rahul was my age or a little older. We were like friends who built quality in India, if you could say, in industry in India. And so in the front row, and some others around him. And he gives this speech, and he's invited to say that, sir, you are our guru and you're the economist in the world and so on. Look what you've done for India. We've invited you to please give us some lessons, our guru. He said, I'm giving you 10 commandments. Amongst his commandment was that in a country which is so poor and people still aren't earning enough, please don't spend too much on yourself. This show of wealth and expensive weddings is vulgar. Says so. Number two, there are people who historically have not been able to get, he's talking of the Dalits and the others. Please go out of your way, give them a chance, respect and a chance to learn, which they miss otherwise. All these, he read 10 such principles out. When he finished his speech, Munjal and Rahul were crying with tears to say, thank goodness we have a leader like this. Narayan Murthy and others who weren't in the hall, but they were interviewed by the media immediately, Bangalore types, Nandan, Narayan, and so on, they were alarmed. He's taking us back into socialism. We thought, Arey, he's a turncoat. He always was a socialist. And so he was not, he refused to come to the next meeting of CII. 2 years later, Sunil Mittal became, and he's Delhi based, so he said, we have to make up with the Prime Minister. He asked Dr. Manmohan Singh, would you please come? And this time the government got the Vigyan Bhavan for him, the Prime Minister. And by this time, I had written a book called Transforming Capitalism, Improving the World for Everyone. And in that book, I had included his speech of how little people had absorbed. And this is what's going wrong in the world, and it's gone much worse since then. But this was that time. So my book is to be released, let's say. I suggested to Sunil that since you want to make up with him, please allow him to receive the first copy of my book before it is released. Now, everyone said that this is never done, that when the Prime Minister officially releases a book, so all right, it won't be a release, you're right. But can CII, me, gift him the first copy? So before the meeting, when the meeting started, I was put into the whole security line in the front to say, inside your book, is there any bomb? Is there any something? And so on. This is you're going to give. Now you just give it to him, let him hold it, and leave your hand, meaning to all this instruction I'm given. I go up to the stage and, of course, go to Manmohan Singh and I give him this book. And I've got the picture in my study here. And he picks it and he says to me, I said, sir, I wrote it because what you said to us, CI, 2 years ago, is the most profound lesson in statesmanship and policy that anyone in the world has given in the last 30 years. And it's there. So he looked in gentle eyes and a little tear like seemed to be coming in his eyes. And I said, it's at the back there. See, opened, and that took a time, you see. Now the security people say, get off. But he says, where is it? So I said, back, and they're pulling me away. We go away. That's my contact. I'm saying 2 years later, when I retired from BCG, I'm off in Prague, retiring finally. I get a call from Montek. The morning we land up there, saying, Arun, the Prime Minister wants to invite you to join the Planning Commission. I said, don't pull my leg, yaar. I've never worked in government. I'm not an economist. He said, no, no, seriously, please, would you? I won't elaborate the story, but I did accept immediately to serve the country. Of course, who would refuse this, considering my ambition? I did. When I came back to Delhi immediately to say, sir, I think you might have made a mistake. My name is spelled Maira. मैं वो पिशावर वगैरह से हूँ. मेरा नहीं है, हमारी बरादरी है, but you know. So he smiled. He said, Arun, I know you very well. I've got your book here. He had that book, and I want to thank you. I want you, therefore, on the Planning Commission. Because since you're from industry, I want you to be the insider to tell industry that unless they change what they're doing, this country won't be good for them. It won't be good for anybody. Right now, we are in that point, chasing GDP and deregulate for industry, land, farm laws, and labor laws, and so on. And we know that the incomes are not rising. Unless incomes rise, where's the investment going to come? The industry people are not fools. They're not doing charity. You've got to pick up. Yeah, people who want to learn from wherever they are. An agriculture person can learn simple manufacturing. He's not going to be able to learn what happens in an Infosys white office.
See, the point which you mentioned, information availability, and about this particular book, if I can share a few thoughts on that. Now, go till I see it. There's a 3 Gen principle. The real thing,
Real place.
the real place, real fact.
Yes.
We have in India one of the most powerful computer systems in the world in the companies. Management system design, information system. But the person who is to act on it on the shop floor has no idea of information that he needs.
You know, but I'm to the Planning Commission. So we have models, and economics has become completely mathematical. And economics uses more mathematics than physicists use nowadays. Keep inventing new maths to do things. When I joined the Planning Commission, and Montek is the vice chairman, Kasturi Rangan, eminent physicist,
Yes.
space scientist, he was also there in charge of science. I'm in charge of industry and urbanization in the Planning Commission. And we have the other economists all around us and social scientists and so on. Montek had taken a commission from, this was the second term of his Planning Commission, to commission various Indian think tanks, NCAR, ICRIER and all, to develop a more robust model of the Indian economy so that with the right statistics, they could predict next quarter's results and what the growth might be, because they always get it wrong anyway. So this was a big exercise amongst economic think tanks and so on. So they were being funded to produce this, and some competition who produced the best. So one day, Montek says, look, they're coming to present their finals. And would Kasturi Rangan and I, please, being physicists, and physicists are supposed to be the best modelers, sit and listen to them and then, give our views. So I'm sitting, Montek is here. I happen to sit next to Montek and Kasturi Rangan on my right. And these guys is Sujit Bhalla with his models and someone else with his models, and all of them, numbers, flashes, graphs, and X's and Y's, the economics equations. After some time, old Kasturi Rangan, such a sweet old man, he turns to me, Arun, do you know what they're talking about? I said, I haven't a clue, frankly. He said, this is what why don't they just use some common sense? And this is what has happened. That, just apply simple common sense. And who has common sense? If you ask poor people, कि खास बात क्या है, क्या हो रहा है, the real place, the real people, you'll really understand. But we don't want to. We want to convert them into numbers and take some data out of them through our smart information systems, which we have now, financialize the information about them, and then try to make a model, and then say, now I've got, you can easily get more money on the banking system. Yeah, but I need to have some money in my bank account first to be able to draw it. Yeah, I don't have enough wealth.
Okay, Arun, now we've spent a good deal of time. So maybe your concluding thoughts on this whole subject that we've talked about.
Thank you, Janak. It's been a very thought-provoking discussion, and as you could see, I get very passionate about certain things, and I know you are about the same things. And just overall, the big picture that's emerging in my mind. The world is having many, many, many problems. And we have, as a set of countries around the world, agreed that there is a set of sustainable development goals a few years ago, all intergovernment agreement with a lot of participation of NGOs and business associations, that the whole world needs to achieve these 17 sustainable development goals. What are the goals about? A fair number of them are about environment and climate related issues, about carbon and pollution and oceans being polluted and degrading soils. Fair amount of them are to do with economic issues, poverty, inequality. Fair number of them about governance issues, lack of access to public health and education. So there are a variety of problems. It's a polycrisis, as people say. And all these problems need to be solved simultaneously. You cannot solve, for example, the climate problem making poverty worse for some people, because that is even worse problem for some people than the climate is for them. So all of them have to be solved simultaneously. In other words, the world is a very complex system in which there are many, many things that are interacting with each other, and you can't fix one thing ignoring the others. Otherwise, the unintended consequences, the second order effects, can make something else much worse. So here we have this. The people make estimates, as you know, by saying how much progress has been made against the SDGs, the 16 or 17, or 17th is about collaboration, the 16th, and let's say the 17th also, and some mathematical way of accessing this month, this month, this much. Overall, at the pace at which we are going, how long will it take us to achieve all the SDGs? The last estimate made the year before last or last year, we are supposed to achieve the SDGs by 2030. Said if we keep carrying on the way we are, we may not even achieve them by 2087. Now, if by 2087 the climate hasn't been attended to, or the malnutrition and poverty in Africa and Gaza and all has not been attended to, the world is not going to be the world. We probably already passed that stage. So, as Einstein said, you cannot solve the big problems that you're having with the same thinking that led you to those problems. So, time has come to rethink how we solve complex problems. The present way, the scientific way, is that you divide the problem into its parts. Each part requires a specialization and special knowledge to solve it. So we have climate experts, we have industry experts, education experts, health experts, financial experts, water management experts, and so on. So when people get together, they know that they are doing the right thing by choosing one of these big problems and saying, we together, mean the NGOs in it, the government departments in it, the businesses who have an interest in that subject, together we will solve this problem. So there's collaboration, yes, across the sectors, but to solve a particular problem. And the theory is that you need expertise to solve complex problems. So who has the expertise? So you get all the research scientists and so on. And so each of these problems is being solved scientifically with people working collaboratively to solve them. This approach is an unsystemic approach. It is fixing parts of the problems without understanding the interconnections amongst them. So, around the world, climate problems exist in various ways around the world. When you talk about pollution, it is very true that the cities in India may be more polluted than cities elsewhere, but it's equally true that while cities in the United States may not be that polluted, They are having intense heat problems or water shortage problems like in California. So there are environmental problems exist in different forms all around the world. Similarly, if you talk about access to sufficient social security, US has as much of a problem as we have. However, their solution can't be the same as ours because we don't have enough resources to, just give away, which the US may have, and so on. So the problems exist everywhere, but in different forms. And once again, I remind you can't solve the social security problem in the US without fixing its own finance and budget problems.
Yeah.
And you can't solve the poverty problems in the US without please taking attention to the environmental problems in the communities, wherever they are. So this means that these 17 problems do combine in different ways to produce different real life situations. You remember what you said about the real place? In real places, the system has very different configurations, though it includes the same 17 variables. A mathematical thing which I've done, and you could do it, there are 94 million combinations possible of 17 variables taken, even 7 at a time. If on the assumption I say that, well, 6 or 7 of those problems at this moment don't matter in Kerala or don't matter in Colorado, most of the others are still mattering. So just take 7, 94 million. Now you cannot have one size fits solutions for 94 million problems. Each locality will have to improve its system itself. The locality and the people in it, they are the system, they are in the system. So the solutions to these global problems are local system solutions found by communities and implemented cooperatively by communities. What is then the role of the experts? Not to tell them by the model to say, here, I'm giving you the information which might help you, is to learn from them how they manage a system. And if you have something which might be useful to them to help them manage the system, you ask their permission and don't just impose it because I'm from PhD from Harvard and I've got the Bill Gates Foundation's millions of dollars on the government of India, which is the present situation. We just think the experts know how to solve the problem, which is Einstein's problem. That you better give up this theory of expertise and how you manage complex problems. The people themselves, as I found, and I've been working now with communities and through organizations, working with communities around India and other poorer countries too, the people's view of the problem and the frugal solution, the right resilient solution to the problem is always the best. And it's never the same as elsewhere, except one principle is common. Listen to us, let us listen to each other, and we will figure out the solution. Please stop imposing your money on us, and with the money comes what you think I should do. So, but why does that persist? Why is it that the people on the top, whether they are experts in knowledge or chaps with money or people with government authority, keep imposing themselves? It's a matter of power. Yeah, those who have the power should, and they want to exercise their power on behalf of everybody. But their knowledge is not the accurate knowledge. So we come to this question about making policy and change, that unfortunately, policies are made by the people presently in power. The present people in the corporate sector are consulted. If the Prime Minister has to consult, business ke liye kya acha hai, do you think he's calling the small scale fellows in their millions? If he says what is good for the farmers, do you think he's calling the thousands and millions of farmers? No, they're a problem. They don't understand progress. Let's call these experts of Gulati and others who got a, so you get it?
Yeah.
And so the process of developing policy must listen to the people at the bottom. And my grandson Viren, when he came and I joined the planning commission, and he looked around India, because he'd come first when he was 5, and then before that at 2, and he's growing up and being able to make some hosh ke kya hai. This time he was 7. When he was here 2 years before, I was not in the planning commission when he was 5, and he had noticed in New Delhi where we were driving him that there were poor people on the streets, of New Delhi. It's a capital with Luton's bungalows and all, but on the crossings there were people running around asking for food, and the children just using the toilets on the side. And he was just shocked that, proud of India and what is all this? Anyway, it was explained to him that it's a poor country, not as rich as yours, and so on. When he came 2 years later, I was now in the planning commission, had been there for one whole month, and so on. I'm driving now in this nice white ambassador car. Those days was still an ambassador, big batti on the top, official driver, my grandson sitting proudly with me, taking all the salutes from the police people, and my son sitting in the front. And we passed Nizamuddin. And there are a lot of poor people outside the Nizamuddin area. Though it's a lovely Lodi road, and you can see the thing across, but there are there. So he's passing there, and suddenly this boy explodes and says, "What's the government doing? Counting daisies? Counting daisies?" My son turns and says, "Viren, what do you mean counting daisies?" He said, "Look at all the poor people. There's so many more poor people. What's the government doing?" So my son says, "Now Dadaji is government." So he looks at me and says, "Arey, this chap who plays ball with me and stuff is called government. Ye kya cheez hai?" So I thought I'd explain to him that it's a very difficult problem and so on. But it was interesting because in that month when I joined the Planning Commission, for 2-3 months there was a big controversy about the Tendulkar poverty line and whether since liberalization, poverty had reduced sufficiently in India. Yes, it had reduced, but there were still more people because the population had gone up. Right. And the question comes to a question I think would always backward people's mind. Is the pace fast enough? If some people's poverty is being reduced at some pace and other people are getting richer at a much faster pace, is this a fair system? So this was the point. And comes to, therefore, I say power. That those who have the power to fix the rules, to advise on the rules, they will always make the rules to suit themselves. So power and wealth increase by a process of cumulative causation. What made it happen? If you allow the same process to use, more of it will happen, and you continue to allow that process to be used, even more of it will happen. Thus, inequalities around the world since the 1990s have increased, which Thomas Piketty documented so thoroughly. And he's pointing out the systemic reasons why it will be so. That unless you start listening to the poorest people, let them figure out in their settings where exactly they are, whether they need any data from you at all, don't interfere. They may find, and they do find good ways, as we found, that they want to see whether the soil quality is degrading. We old timers had a way. They could tell you that abhi time nahi hai bone ka. But we've done some scientific this thing, which are missing most of the variables, which is the problem with mathematical models of science. We exclude many things for which we don't know yet how to measure it mathematically or how it combines with the rest of the model. So at the moment, let people say, my information that I have is sufficiently quantitative. Just keep your data to yourself. If some part of it, there is some instrument that you have like to measure moisture, oh, I can see the value, tell me what it measures. I will ask you for those instruments, give those instruments to me. Empower the people with what they need. And they know what they need. I don't know what they need.
I think it's an excellent explanation. They also need and the government support to make things happen. Once they know what they need, how do we bring that element in? Once they know what they need, they probably need some support somewhere from the system to make it work.
Well said. India with Mr. Modi has done some remarkable things. He got Mr. Modi, and he's grown up not through, as he says, Khan Market and Harvard and stuff. He grew up as a simple person. And he therefore does say that, people have aspirations like he had. They want to improve their own lives. Give them respect. So he created this program called the Aspirational Districts Program. He said the way, talking in the context of the SDGs, that unless all the districts of India improve, India can't achieve the SDGs. Unless all the countries improve, the world can't achieve its SDGs. So he says, which are the poorest districts in the country, the most backward districts? So again, people have, measurements on incomes, measurements on water availability, measurements on access to education, 300 indicators. So by that, the Niti Aayog selected some 100 odd districts in the country. And some chief ministers like in Odisha said, you're missing actually these few districts which don't appear to you to be as poor, actually to our mind are poorer. So fine, he made 118 districts. The word he used, not backward, aspirational districts. He says people have an aspiration to improve their lives, to improve their own communities. The thrust must be helping them in their aspirations. And we government chappies must let them say what are the problems that matter. Now, the experts in planning and Niti and all say, but they don't know what matters. So we'll tell them that, have you thought about the quality of the pollution? Have you thought about XYZ? So we'll give them some things for them to think about. Or theek hai, unhone kaha. Give them, but don't confuse them too much. Just give them. So they got 8 or 9 categories of things. These matter, and according to these, maybe how do you think you're doing? So start listening to them, giving them a framework that they should think beyond their narrow something, and so they did. After that, he said the plan to improve the district should be made by the people. Right. And we've got 300, 400 government schemes applicable in every district, central schemes and state schemes. Let the local district, local community choose which one of those schemes they want at that time. So all of them at the same time don't help. There's no point building toilets if they don't have enough water to flush the toilets. Maybe therefore forget the toilets, improve water access, and come to toilets later. Like that. It's a systems change, which everything should not be done together. It's a certain order in which some parts of the system which are weaker are first strengthened, then they're able to build their other parts themselves to go forward. So this was his approach. But he found, and I found with Amitabh Kant, who's written a very nice endorsement of my new book, who called me to say, sir, could you just observe how the government is learning from this program and accepting? It came to just this. The government officers down there, see, they are getting a bombardment of all these schemes, and they are accountable to the state and to the center. How is the scheme doing in their district? So he is not choosing. He's whoever has a greater power to push and a greater budget, he's going to push that scheme. And that may not be the most important at that time. So it comes to this interface between the bottom up and the top down. The top must listen to the bottom up and not insist the bottom listen to the top down.
Yeah. And then provide the support where they need it.
And learn that some things you don't have, you don't know yourself, they're smarter than you, and go back yourself to school. In fact, they're the best school. Learn from them how to do it.
Okay, thank you very much, Arun. Appreciate your time and effort in sharing your thoughts so openly and freely. And that's great learning for me many things today. Thank you very much. Namaste.
My real pleasure, Janak, my guru. Thank you.